I would like to advise all those present that notice of this regular meeting of May 17th, 2023 has been provided to the public in accordance with the provisions of the Open Public Meeting Act of the State of New Jersey. Notice of time and place of this meeting has been included in the annual notice of meetings, which was posted and filed with the city clerk and with the Jersey Journal and the Star Ledger. An additional notice of time and place was posted and filed with the city clerk and was forwarded to the Jersey Journal and Star Ledger on April 14th, 2023. The regular meeting of the Municipal Council of the City of Bayonne is now in session. Ms. Medina, please call the roll.
Mr. Booker?
Here.
Mr. Carroll?
Here.
Mr. Perez?
Here.
Ms. Weimer?
Here.
Mr. La Palusa?
Here, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get started, I'd like to start the meeting with a resolution, and I would like to read that resolution for our colleague who passed away. He was a former councilman, elected 4 times, and he was also a former council president. Whereas Joseph L. Makowski was first elected to serve on this municipal council in 1982 as 2nd Ward councilman, and whereas Joseph L. Makowski was elected to serve the 2nd Ward in 1986, 1990, and 1994, and was selected by his peers to serve as council president from 1994 to 1998, and whereas Joseph L. Makowski's service on this municipal council was but a small part of his commitment and dedication to the city of Bayonne, and whereas the Honorable Joseph L. Makowski passed from this earth on Saturday, May 13, 2023, and the city of Bayonne is a lesser place for it, now, therefore, be it resolved that the city of Bayonne hereby officially recognizes the Honorable Joseph L. Makowski's contributions to the city of Bayonne and further lauds him for his love for and dedication to our great city. And be it further resolved that this municipal council shall now honor Joseph L. Makowski with a moment of silence. Thank you.
The resolution is moved by the council as a whole. And on that resolution, Mr. Booker?
Aye.
Mr. Carroll?
Resoundingly aye.
Mr. Perez?
Aye.
Ms. Weimer?
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa?
We'll miss him greatly, and I vote aye.
O1 is moved by the council president postponing an ordinance entitled An Ordinance of the City of Bayonne amending and supplementing the revised general ordinances, Chapter 16, rent control, and is postponing to the meeting of June 14th. Mr. Perez, will you second?
Second.
On that resolution, Mr. Booker?
Aye.
Mr. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. Perez?
Aye.
Ms. Weimer?
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa?
Aye.
May I ask, was there a reason for why it's being postponed?
The rent control language, we've been waiting for a few months. This was postponed last month as well. Is not in the language that we usually use for our meetings and for the public. And so it's been taking a little while, but we want to get it in the language. The person who did it also became a judge, so we've been trying to go back and forth with them and go through all these things. They were paid for a service. We're going through that paid service, and we got to get it right. And that's the main thing.
And when you get it
Yeah.
right,
It's the format.
would the public be able to have access to it?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
It's the format that was different, and we have to make sure that that's in line with everything else.
O2 is an ordinance of the City of Bayonne, County of Hudson, New Jersey, appropriating $581,702.10, consisting of $443,201.60 Federal Emergency Management Agency grant and $138,500.50 from the Capital Surplus Fund in order to provide for the Phase 1 of the Cottage Street Flood Mitigation Project. The ordinance was introduced and read at the first reading at the meeting held April 19th, was published in the Jersey Journal and posted on the bulletin board as required by law, with notice that it will be further considered for final passage following a public hearing at this meeting of May 17th. and is now before the council for its consideration and a public hearing. And a resolution moved by Councilmember Perez, giving the ordinance second reading. Mr. Booker, will you second?
Yes.
And on that resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
Second reading is by title, an ordinance of the City of Bayonne, County of Hudson, New Jersey, appropriating $581,702.10, consisting of a $443,201.60 federal emergency management grant and $138,500.50 from the capital surplus fund in order to provide for Phase 1 of the Cottage Street flood mitigation project. The council is now ready to give all persons interested in this ordinance an opportunity to be heard concerning it. The council president will recognize anyone who wishes to speak.
Ms. Gadetsky?
Good evening, council. First and foremost, I sympathize with each and every one of you. Mr. Mikowski was a wonderful man. On ordinance 2, how much did we already spend regarding the study? Isn't that all meshed together with what we're looking at as far as the water and sewer issues? Did we already spend money for this, the study and what needs to get done?
Ms. Mack, if you could come and answer that, please.
Good evening, how are you?
Hi, Sue.
Also, Director Kavanaugh is here, it's under her offices, but Gail, to answer that question, we did Resilience New Jersey the past couple of years. I think you've been at a few of the meetings on that, and during that process, we were allowed to use them to help us write a brick grant to implement something in the Resilient New Jersey plan. And so they helped us prepare the application, and we actually just received word recently that it was favorably reviewed, and so therefore we have an opportunity to get, I believe it's about $6.7 million over time for it. But there's a first phase, and the first phase is basically what you're looking at now. I think it's 541,000, something like that. And that's to start the study, prepare all the documents, environmental assessments, and then you send it down to them. And if everything's acceptable to them, then we'll actually get the physical money to do the improvements.
Is this work going out for bid, Sue?
Yes, it would go out to bid.
So it'll go out to bid, and then the council will make the lowest bid will take
It'll
place?
be an RFP. It follows the federal guidelines, which are much stricter than city or state guidelines.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No protest against, objections to, or statements in favor of this ordinance or its passage has been filed with me. May I have a motion to close?
So move.
Second.
And on the motion to close, Mr. Booker. Aye. Mr. Carroll. Aye. Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Aye. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
And a resolution ordering final passage.
So move.
And on that resolution, Mr. Booker. Aye. Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Aye. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
03 is an ordinance of the City of Bayonne, County of Hudson, New Jersey, adopting the amended and restated Maris redevelopment plan for the property located at 1241 Kennedy Boulevard rear and West 57th Street, which is identified as Block 13, Lots 1.01, 16, 17, 18, and 18B01, as shown on the official tax map of the city pursuant to the local redevelopment and housing law, which was introduced and passed the first reading at the meeting held April 19th, was published in the Jersey Journal and posted on the bulletin board as required by law, with notice that it would be further considered for final passage following a public hearing at this meeting of May 17th, and is now before the council for its consideration and a public hearing. And a resolution moved by the council president giving the ordinance second reading. Mr. Perez, will you second?
Second.
And on the resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
Second reading is by title, an ordinance of the City of Bayonne, County of Hudson, New Jersey, adopting amended and restated Maris redevelopment plan for the property located at 1241 Kennedy Boulevard rear and West 57th Street, which property is identified as Block 13, Lots 1.01, 16, 17, 18, and B.01, 18B.01, as shown on the official tax map of the city. And the council is now ready to give all persons interested in this ordinance an opportunity to be heard concerning it. The council president will recognize anyone who wishes to speak.
Yes. Please state your name and address first, please.
Gail Godesky, 828 Kennedy Boulevard. What is the amendments and the restated information?
Mac, you want to answer that?
Hi, Gil. And
Hi.
Director Skillender's here, also in the building somewhere. He may be able to give you more information. The actual amendment is the exact same language that's in all of the MOPI plans. It allows an interim use on the property for a period of time by going to the planning board. It's not a permanent use. You can't put up a building or anything like that. That would be considered permanent, but it's a use of the property until the property is either comes in for a site plan, a formal site plan, or the use would expire.
Okay, what type of interim functions would the property have?
Yes.
Do you know what they will be?
Yeah, so what the plan states is that any use that's in the approved plan can be considered as an interim use. It refers to a section of where the permitted uses are, and only those uses can be considered for an interim period of time.
I don't have the plan. Can you give me just a couple of examples?
Well, the plan was very broad in the fact that it would allow for either residential development or it would allow for warehousing type development, and those decisions weren't made. What we anticipate is that there won't be allowed to be any buildings, but the use of the property for storage. I have not talked to the developer about what it is, but I know there are several big utility projects that are online for the city of Bayonne, and I know that the utility companies have been looking for spaces to store their equipment during, off hours while they're doing their projects elsewhere in the city of Bayonne.
Okay,
But we
so
do not
they have
an
to go to the planning board to get approval for what they're going to use for the interim.
Yes, they do.
Okay, thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No protest against, objections to, or statements in favor of this ordinance or its passage has been filed with me. May I have a motion to close?
Move it.
And on the motion to close, Mr. Booker. Aye. Mr. Carroll. Aye. Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Aye. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
And a resolution ordering final passage.
Move it.
On that resolution, Mr. Booker. Aye. Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Aye. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
04 is an ordinance authorizing a 10-year lease with the Bayonne Community Day Nursery at 591 Broadway in the city of Bayonne, New Jersey, for $1 per year, which was introduced and passed. The first reading at the meeting held April 19th, was published in the Jersey Journal and posted on the bulletin board as required by law, with notice that it would be further considered for final passage following a public hearing at this meeting of May 17th, and is now before the council for its consideration and a public hearing. And a resolution moved by the council as a whole, giving the ordinance second reading. On that resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Aye. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
Second reading is by title, an ordinance authorizing a 10-year lease with the Bayonne Community Day Nursery at 591 Broadway, Bayonne, New Jersey, for $1 per year. The council is now ready to give all persons interested in this ordinance an opportunity to be heard concerning it. The council president will recognize anyone who wishes to speak. No protest against, objections to, or statements in favor of this ordinance or its passage has been filed with me. May I have a motion to close?
So move.
On the motion to close, Mr. Booker. Aye. Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Aye. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
And a resolution ordering final passage.
So move.
And second? And on that resolution, Mr. Booker. Aye. Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Aye. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
05 is an ordinance of the City of Bayonne, County of Hudson, New Jersey, amending and supplementing the revised general ordinances of the City of Bayonne, Chapter 33, Planning and Development Regulations, which was introduced and passed a first reading at the meeting held April 19th, was published in the Jersey Journal and posted on the bulletin board as required by law, with notice that it would be further considered for final passage following a public hearing at this meeting of May 17th, is now before the council for its consideration and a public hearing. And a resolution moved by the council president, giving the ordinance second reading. Mr. Booker, will you second?
Aye.
And on the resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
Second reading is by title, an ordinance of the City of Bayonne, County of Hudson, New Jersey, amending and supplementing the revised general ordinances of the City of Bayonne, Chapter 33, Planning and Development Regulations. The council is now ready to give all persons interested in this ordinance an opportunity to be heard. The council president will recognize anyone who wishes to speak.
Yes.
Are we increasing or decreasing the fees?
These are getting money for our professionals, but I'll let Mr. Skillender explain a little bit further.
Hi, Ms. Gadecki.
Hi, how are you?
Good, yourself?
Good, good.
So, again, this ordinance here is to formalize a process that's already in existence within our redevelopment plan. What we're doing here is actually asking upfront on any of the start that the developer has to do by project cost, and there'll be a sliding scale. So, to answer your question of us asking for this, we're putting a more formalized process, so there's no discretion amongst anyone in the city for this. So, we're following what other towns have done in the past.
So there was discretion for the escrow fees based on the project?
On the redevelopment side, depending on the project, or, you would have professionals recommend it. Now we're formalizing this process.
Right.
And in doing so, if there's a project of about $25 million or more, they will have to post an escrow of up to $50,000. And again, this is just formalizing a process that is already in place.
Okay, is it a percentage of the project cost?
No, there's a sliding scale that's, depending on the project cost, there's a number associated with that, from asking from $2,500 all the way for the larger projects to $50,000 that they'd have to post to pay, our professionals.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? No protest against, objections to, or statements in favor of this ordinance or its passage has been filed with me. May I have a motion to close?
Move it.
And on the motion to close, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
And a resolution ordering final passage.
Move it.
Second.
And on that resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
06 is an ordinance of the City of Bayonne amending and supplementing the revised general ordinances, Chapter 13, Recreational and Other Public Facilities, which was introduced and passed the first reading at a meeting held April 19th, was published in the Jersey Journal and posted on the bulletin board as required by law, with notice that it would be further considered for final passage following a public hearing at this meeting of May 17th, is now before the council for its consideration and a public hearing. And a resolution moved by Councilmember Booker, giving the ordinance second reading. Mr. La Palusa, will you second?
Second.
And on the resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
Second reading is by title, an ordinance of the City of Bayonne amending and supplementing the revised general ordinances, Chapter 13, Recreational and Other Public Facilities. The council president will recognize anyone who wishes to speak.
Yes.
I could be wrong, but I think there was an article that said the city was not going to increase the pool fees. Why are we doing this to our residents, especially with the inflation taking place and the economic environment right now? Don't you think it would be more feasible to hold off on this?
Mr. Carter, you want to explain what you explained to me about this?
Yes. We had put this on, I believe it was.
It was tabled from
Yeah.
what month? It wasn't-
Yes, it was.
Yeah. And the article didn't mention anything about us raising pool fees. The article didn't, that I remember, I read it.
Maybe I dreamt it, Tommy.
Well, yeah, it's all right, Gail. The problem with our pool is what we put out in cost for the pool, and we're not trying to make money off of the pool or the residents, but in chemicals alone, just to maintain the pool last year, we spent close to $60,000. We took in $52,000 in revenue from the pool, and that didn't account for our lifeguards, our summer helpers.
New liner.
The liner is also different. So if you look at the pool, you could see that over time it's been degrading. And what we're trying to do is just at least get some money back that we can pay for the pool. I think total cost on the pool last year to have it open was close to $300,000 to have that pool open.
And that was during COVID too, so didn't we have any COVID funding or anything that we could have utilized because the emergency was still in effect at that time?
We did use COVID money.
Okay,
Yes, last year, we paid for all the salaries for the whole pool out of COVID.
okay. So here's my thought. We're in an inflationary period right now. This is part of my 5-minute spiel. However, why don't we start enforcing the parking ordinances and start giving out tickets to people that actually do? I know we give out tickets, but we need to give out more tickets. Put the police officers, nice weather's coming, put them on bicycles, let them start giving out tickets when they see somebody making a U-turn on Broadway, so another person doesn't have to get killed. Instead of nickel and diamond the families that are trying to make ends meet right now. So I really think with the money in this agenda alone that we're spending versus what we need for the pool, I think you need to table this. Just for this year. Just for this year, table it.
So
We have a capital surplus somewhere. I
I'd like
see
to
it written.
answer what you said, okay?
Okay.
None of the council up here was happy about having to increase this, or was Mr. Cotter for that matter, or his department. But Mr. Cotter explained that how much of a dire need the urgency was, and there was discussion about not opening the pool until a month later or possibly a month early, which I don't want the public to be without the pool. And it only made sense that the people who use the pool would have to pay that increase and not put it on to the total taxpayer. Taxpayers are already paying money for the chemicals, the liner, and all that, because it comes from the general coffers.
But isn't there a capital surplus fund that we could utilize?
No, you can't use, for operating expenses, you cannot use the capital surplus fund.
Okay, all right.
So it came down to, are we going to do without, or we're going to have to raise it? And when we looked around at what the other townships were paying, again, the $3 that I think the increase is going to, from $1 to $3, was actually lower than a lot of the townships. So it was just time, it needed to be raised. Everything else is going up as well, and I'm not using that as an excuse, but the fact of the matter is, I don't want to do without that pool for the citizens, and I think my colleagues agree with me.
I just think that we could find a better way to compensate the what is it, $10,000? How much difference is it? It costs $8,000, 60 versus 52. It cost $60,000 last year, and,
No, that was just in chlorine.
oh, in chlorine only.
Just in chlorine.
Okay.
And then salaries was, yeah, so we were over 300,000. We took in
But we don't have
50
that option anymore this year.
52,000,
for that.
so we were only covering 20% of our cost for the pool. So that burden was on the taxpayer. So what we're doing now, with what we'll bring in, we'll probably bring in, based on last year's attendance, maybe another 50,000, so we'll get it up to 100. So at least we'll be, 70-30. Yeah, I mean, 60-30, in that ballpark.
60/40.
Yeah, 60-40. yeah.
What about the grants for recreation? Can't we use any of that money? 'Cause
We
I
could start
noticed-
looking into, we don't have anything for that right now, and we haven't raised the pool fees in, I don't know how many years. Also, seniors, we didn't raise, and it's still, the kids who are in camp go to use the pool for free when they go to the pool, and that's at least once, sometimes twice a week.
Thank
So
you, Director.
It is, I mean, for people that can't afford, to go to the pool, there are the camps and everything else where you're able to use the pool And we also have all the spray parks are up and running. So it's not a big increase, but I get it. Times are tough, taxes are going up, food is up, everything costs, but our cost is up too. And we can't operate that pool, and I'd rather see it open than start cutting back on days we open it or hours. So at least it's open,
Thank you, Director.
Yep.
Anyone else? No protest against, objections. Oh, come on up.
Please come up, state your name and address.
My name is Madeline. I live at 169 West 48th Street. Of all these condos that are being built right now, you're going to tell me that you're not, all this money that's going to build these condos can't take over that pool?
Ma'am,
And take
if there
some-
was enough money
Well,
to do
yeah,
it,
all these condos that are being built,
yeah.
are you going to tell me that they can't pay for that pool? That you can't make some kind of arrangements? Because Jersey City always makes their arrangements for other things.
Jersey
like-
City raised their rates as well this year.
Yes, but when they build condos in Jersey City, they do a lotto, and you can buy one for $100,000. You can't sell it in 10 years, but you have to sell it for exactly $100,000. But how come we don't have that right here? How come there's no agreement here when these condos are going up? I don't see any of that. And if there is, I don't see any of that in the paper saying there's a lotto for that.
Well, I don't know about the lotto in Jersey City.
But they
We're
do
talking
have
about
that.
the increase in fees here.
Mm.
We don't have that in Bayonne as a vehicle to try and pay for things, and I don't know how Jersey City's doing that.
Well, they're doing
Okay.
very well with their
We
committee,
get
I
tax
see.
money. We have a public speaking portion right
Mm.
after this. If you want to come up, you could talk about anything you want. You just have to let the clerk know,
Mhm.
where you could talk about anything you want. But for now, we have to just stick to this with the thing. Right now, I spoke to the director. There was
Right.
no other way to pay for that I know of. Tommy, if you knew of another way, I know you would have told me. The CFO, is right here.
But I
and
think
she
the
would've told
lady's
me as
right,
well.
though, when she said to give out more tickets, because these cars are speeding,
The chief of police is in the back, and he
Yeah.
hears you talking, so.
and nobody stops even at the crosswalk. You put a light up on 49th Street and Avenue C,
Mhm.
it's still up there, it's still covered. How come?
Listen, it took us months just to get the
Took years to
poles.
finally get one over there.
Ma'am,
Years.
If I could have had it done 5 minutes ago, I would have had it
So how come
done.
it's not working? And the cars are speeding?
Public service has us waiting to put the service on. They've had light poles, they had a shortage of light bulbs nationwide, so it took so long to get the poles. The same thing in the county park. There's a block of lights that are not shining, and it's been months.
Well, and more than months, it's a couple of years. I mean, you walk up and down the street, you see how
But
dark
again,
Bayonne is?
you could talk about anything you want in the public speaking portion,
Yeah,
but for right now,
okay.
we have to stick to the pool.
Okay, no problem.
Anyone else? No protest against, objections to, or statements in favor of this ordinance or its passage has been filed with me. May I have a motion to close?
Move.
And on the motion to close, Mr. Booker. Mr. Carroll. Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
And/or resolution ordering final passage.
So move.
In a second.
Second.
And on that resolution, Mr. Booker. Mr. Carroll.
Much was discussed, and I appreciate the council president saying that we were all dissatisfied with it, but one of the reasons for the tabling, and I credit my colleagues for saving the family rate fee in an effort to make it as affordable as possible, not just to the individual users, but to the families as well, to try and save that from the scrap heap. So I vote aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer.
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
7 is an ordinance amending and supplementing the revised general ordinances of the City of Bayonne, Chapter 20, Personnel Policies, which was introduced and passed the first reading at the meeting held April 19th, was published in the Jersey Journal and posted on the bulletin board as required by law, with notice that it would be further considered for final passage following a public hearing at this meeting of May 17th, is now before the council for its consideration and a public hearing. And a resolution giving the ordinance second reading is moved by Councilmember Perez. Mr. Carroll, will you second?
Second.
And on the resolution, Mr. Booker. Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer.
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
Second reading is by title, an ordinance amending and supplementing the revised general ordinances of the City of Bayonne, Chapter 20, Personnel Policies. The council is now ready to give all persons interested in this ordinance an opportunity to be heard concerning it. The council president will recognize anyone who wishes to speak. No protest against, objections to, or statements in favor of this ordinance or its passage has been filed with me. May I have a motion to close?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
And on the motion to close, Mr. Booker. Mr. Carroll. Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
And a resolution ordering final passage.
So moved.
And a second? And on that resolution, Mr. Booker. Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
08 is an ordinance of the City of Bayonne, County of Hudson, New Jersey, amending and supplementing the revised general ordinances of the City of Bayonne, Chapter 7, Traffic, which was introduced and passed the first reading at a meeting held April 19th, was published in the Jersey Journal and posted on the bulletin boards required by law, with notice that it would be further considered for final passage following a public hearing at this meeting of May 17th, is now before the council for its consideration and a public hearing. And the resolution is moved by the council president. Mr. Perez, will you second?
Second.
And on that resolution, Mr. Booker. Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
Second reading is by title, an ordinance of the City of Bayonne, County of Hudson, New Jersey, amending and supplementing the revised general ordinances of the City of Bayonne, Chapter 7, Traffic. The council is now ready to give all persons interested in the ordinance an opportunity to be heard concerning it. The council president will recognize anyone who wishes to speak. No protest against, objections to, or statements in favor of this ordinance or its passage has been filed with me. May I have a motion to close?
Move it.
Second.
And on the motion to close, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
And a resolution ordering final passage.
Move it.
Second.
And on that resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
08 is an ordinance of the City of Bayonne, County of Hudson, New Jersey, amending and supplementing the revised general ordinances of the City of Bayonne, Chapter 7, Traffic, and which was introduced and passed the first reading at the meeting held April 19th, was published in the Jersey Journal and posted on the bulletin boards required by law, with notice that it would be further considered for final passage following a public hearing at this meeting of May 17th, is now before the council for its consideration and a public hearing. And a resolution giving the ordinance second reading is moved by the council president. Mr. Perez, will you second?
Second.
On that resolution, Mr. Booker. Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
Second reading is by title, an ordinance of the City of Bayonne, County of Hudson, New Jersey, amending and supplementing the revised general ordinances of the City of Bayonne, Chapter 7, Traffic. The council is now ready to give all persons interested in this ordinance an opportunity to be heard concerning it. The council president will recognize anyone who wishes to speak. No protest against, objections to, or statements in favor of this ordinance or its passage has been filed with me. May I have a motion to close?
So moved.
And on the motion to close, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
And a resolution ordering final passage. And second. And on that resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
And our first speaker is Ms. Gadesky.
Sorry, I got a new phone. I got to get to it. Good evening. Gail Godesky, 828 Kennedy Boulevard. Once again, I'm here to find out what is happening with our bridges. I did speak to Director Cotter last week as his team was painting crosswalk lines on the 32nd Street Bridge while the bridge is deteriorating. Who owns the bridge? Who is responsible for the repair? I've been asking this question so long, and no one seems to have answers other than we're working with several entities. The bridge is in need of dire repair. Also, the pedestrian bridge on 25th Street and Avenue E, going over to Prospect Avenue. What's going on with that? Everybody was quick to put a big thing in the paper about a new bridge, a new bridge, a new bridge. Where is it? Somebody needs to know the answers to this, and nobody is letting the public know what is going on. We're so quick to give abatements and pilots, yet we can't do a simple task as to find out who is responsible to repair these bridges. Poor planning produces poor product. We need a process, a step action that someone could follow to get these important things done. I understand I will be able to ask questions about the utility authority. Is that correct, later on?
The new utility you're talking
Yes.
about? Sure.
Okay. And it's finally time, as I stated earlier, we start giving out more tickets. Yellow line parking, U-turns on Broadway, speeding, going through red lights like crazy. Absolute crazy. It's getting worse and worse. Another person lost their life here in this town. It needs to stop. I'm not blaming our men in blue by no means. They work hard every single day. But what we need to do is to enforce our ordinances. We're growing, we need parking. Everybody knows that. But we need to start enforcing our ordinances. RWJ Barnabas Health has a 3-story parking lot. Like, somebody needs to talk to them. Maybe we could cut a deal with them or something to utilize that as part of parking. Double parking, you can't put mail in the mailbox. You all live in Bayonne, you know. Mr. La Palusa, respectfully, I wasn't able to make the last meeting, but I did get home in time for public comments. And you were gracious and respectful enough to answer questions during public comments. If you're going to do that, I would like the same respect. If it's not allowed, then don't respond to anybody. Thank you.
I was really here for the rent control ordinance that you were postponing, but I'd still like to talk with you because whatever you have to rewrite with your legalese, whatever entity is helping you or not helping you, maybe this will give you some things to think about. Each year, the Bayonne City Council must renew the rent control ordinance as amended. Why? Rent control has been abolished. Only a finite amount of residents have been grandfathered in, including me, a resident of Bayonne for 15 years since September 2007. Let's face it, I'm a retired widow. Unless someone sweeps me off my feet or I win a lottery, I'm staying put. My apartment becomes market value on my death. Therefore, in a real sense, there is no need for the Bayonne City Council to go through the ritual renewal each year. Whoever is grandfathered in will leave of their own volition or die, thus freeing the apartment from market rate. So why waste the council's time with annual renewals? And why string along the finite amount of residents who are grandfathered under rent control? I worry that you'll forget to reinstate it, like you did the first renewal year. I also worry that the council will play havoc with the rent control ordinance and not want to reinstate it at all. And I worry that the council will keep amending the ordinance to allow landlords to pass on many costs as a way to allow increases over the CPI. I get it. The council is not going to reinstate rent control for all Bayonne residents. So why not make it easier on your body and relieve the worries of residents grandfathered in rent control by removing the need for annual renewal.
So I'm going to respond to you. And Ms. Gadesky, by the way, I did respond to you the month before at the public speaking portion, as a matter of fact. And it's my discretion on whether I want to respond or not. The response is that there are changes that happen in the town. There are changes in elections and people, different people, different perspectives on how you look at things. So that's the reason why we do this every year, because you can't tell when the changes are going to come, and they're only good for the 1 year. So there may be other things that come into play here. There's, as far as rent control, there's percentage increases. Maybe somebody has an idea that's better that we don't know right now, but maybe in 4 years or
Well,
so.
since it's tied to the CPI, of course you're going to adjust that
Right,
each
but
year.
maybe that changes. You don't know.
Well, no, but I mean, that will change. We had inflation, so it's 5.5.
Maybe
Yeah.
the way they decide this
Oh.
will change, and it will not be married to the CPI. And I've heard a lot of different things, so I don't really know what could happen or what
It's just that it seems so
changes.
precarious.
But that's the reason why it's done every year.
Yeah, because it seems so precarious, and it is scary each time, because then, it's hard to plan, saying, and then, like I said, even you as a body had forgotten it the first time, and then I knew you had to scramble and, get it done. So it just seemed cumbersome to everyone concerned, that's all.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
There hasn't been the huge change that you're talking about, but I think these things need to be reviewed. If you look at the way we did things back in the 90s and the early 2000s and the way we do things now, not just rent control, but other things, things change rapidly. You look at the building that was going on back in the 80s, condos were the big thing. Now it's rentals. Well, we have certain ordinances and rules that changed with that time. And so I think it should be reviewed every year. That's my opinion.
Okay, I think what also, speaking of the 90s, I worked in county government and public relations from 88 to 2000. So I was aware of the Office on Aging in Bayonne, because I was aware of every municipality in Hudson County, and Peggy Lenny was the head of it. And I always saw Bayonne as someplace good for seniors. And I moved here 15 years ago. I'm definitely retired now. And so I don't mind that you need to build your ratables, and so you're building, condos that are all luxury. But then how does that incorporate people who aren't at that economic strata? And that's where I was upset that you really abolished rent control. I was thankful that I'm grandfathered in, but it is a worry. And that's where I'm coming from.
I myself was not for the abolishment of rent control, and I was very vocal about that even at the council meetings. Unfortunately, it was a different council at that time that voted differently. So this is what I'm saying. You have a different council. I don't know how, I didn't poll my colleagues. I don't know how they would feel. But maybe they would feel different, and this is the reason why you have.
You want the
rules
flexibility. That's fine. It's just, like I said, it is a little scary to me, now that I realized, I just felt like I was hanging on by a thread. But I understand now that you put it in there for flexibility, and that's good too.
Yeah. Things do change. We don't know what changes will happen.
Okay.
But it's nice to have the option.
Thank you.
You're welcome. At the end. Okay.
Hello, my name is Stephanie Peterson, 226 Prospect Avenue. I'm here with my family tonight to ask for an exemption or a waiver to the recently modified health regulation regarding the keeping of poultry on my property. Last summer, we began to research how to go about keeping egg-laying hens in our yard. At that time, we did see Bayonne's health regulations regarding the keeping of poultry, which is here. Seeing that we could comply with the ordinance, we decided to go ahead and purchase the supplies needed, the house to chickens, with the intentions of purchasing 4 grown female inoculated egg-laying hens once the coop was set up and ready to be inhabited. We are asking for this exemption because at the time of purchasing the chicken coop and supplies, we were totally unaware that the ordinance had changed. We became aware of the change as we were researching the potential poultry farms to buy our chickens in our coop. We have come here tonight with signed letters of consent from 3 of our neighbors who will fall within the 75 feet of the coop. We have had discussions with our neighbors, and they are aware and on board with our project. We also have the dimensions and a photo of the coop that we would like to submit to the building department for approval. We plan on following all the regulations regarding keeping of poultry on our property as they are laid out in Chapter 21 of the Health Regulations, paragraph 21 through 30, on the keeping of pigeons and poultry. I would like to close with stating that we do not intend on keeping male chickens or roosters on our property, and we do not intend to breed or slaughter our hens. Our intention in keeping the hens is only for the purpose of producing fresh eggs for our family. I sincerely hope that the council will grant us an exemption so we can go forward with our project.
Thank you for your email earlier this week, and we'll take it under consideration. There are certain health issues that we have to worry about. A lot of times, these things, if you are under the rules from before and you were approved, later on, issues come up. And then what do you do with neighbors that don't want it and things like that? So I don't know about the exceptions. We're going to have to talk with the law department, and we will definitely get back to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Madeline, is that it? For the lady in the back, did you want to come up and speak? Can you please give your full name and address?
Sure. Madeline Pearl from 169 West 48th Street.
Thank you.
Of all the, how many senior citizen buildings are you building?
Are we building
Yes.
currently?
Yeah, well, you have a lot of condos. Are you building anything for senior citizen, for housing?
But the city is not building the condos. And
But you let them in, and they're here now.
they're, first of all, most of them are not condos, they're luxury rentals, they're called.
Oh, okay, we'll
Okay.
just say luxury
Yeah.
apartments.
Right.
Okay, but the whole, and they're going for $3,000 or $4,000, correct? Some of them are?
I don't know what the rents are,
Okay.
a couple thousand at
So,
least.
but we don't have anything here for seniors.
There's a lot of buildings for seniors.
No, not a lot. No, not a lot. We don't even have we don't even have anything for domestic violence or for a woman that has to leave in the middle of the night, nowhere to go for that. They tell you to go to Jersey City. Or a man that has to leave for domestic violence too, go to Jersey City. If you need shelter, go to Jersey City. How come we don't have nothing here in Bayonne? We don't have nothing here at all. Why is that? We don't even have a dog shelter. And Bayonne, you see on Broadway, it's all medical. Are we dying of something in Bayonne that nobody's telling us? Are we dying of something? Everything is medical going up. We don't have any stores. We don't have anything. Everything is medical. Why is that? And how come there's no supermarket downtown? You have all these condos being built, or luxury apartments, excuse me, downtown, but how come there's no supermarket? How come? Nobody's building a
I
supermarket.
mean, when we had supermarkets downtown, they failed.
We had plenty downtown.
They failed.
So I don't think they're going to fail now with
I
all
would
the
make the
people coming
distinction
in.
that A&P nationally,
That was
Well, no, we're
A&P,
not-
that was a lot down there.
But downtown
Pianos
does
and all
need-
them,
But
and a
again-
shop, right? But how come they can't build a supermarket down there? How come you can't even get a
I know, but-
Wegmans or
But
ask
again,
somebody
the
to come
city
in?
cannot dictate to people what to build. You can't tell a developer.
No, but you
need to
can,
build
I
this."
mean, I'm pretty sure that you don't have nobody here that can go to, like a supermarket and say, do you want to come to Bayonne?
Well, if I can, Council President,
Mm.
how this works is, it's difficult for us to say to someone to come here. They've done studies, A&P, Starbucks, all huge corporations like that know where they want to put their product, know how they want to build their product, and when they want to build their product. They come to, you don't say, Starbucks only came here after years and years of hoping they'd come here, when the city started to change a bit, and our median income rose. That is the strategy. You're not going to get if it makes business sense for a Wegmans or something like that to come to
Right.
Bayonne, they will come to Bayonne. But it's difficult to entice them to come to a place if they don't have, they don't feel that they have the market available to them.
So in other words, you're saying that they don't think Bayonne is moving up?
No, I think.
There's
I think-
no advancement here.
I think Bayonne is moving up. Bayonne has moved up as we've seen the differences in the rents, and the
Different
median
than-
income.
Yeah, because
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Yes.
But the number of people that we serve, there's 70,000 people just about in Bayonne now. We went up about 10,000, 11,000 people from the last census. And maybe that, at this point, will mitigate in our favor, that an entity like Wegmans will come here. But I don't know. They do their market studies. They decide where they're going to go. It's, we saw down on Route 440, down the back highway, that was a wasteland. That was a nuclear dump site for my whole life growing up here. And
My whole life too, but
Okay.
the whole idea, have you seen all the rats now? They're over there by the light rail at night, when you're catching the light rail, all the rats on the tracks. And when you're going over the 40th Street Bridge, you see all the rats there? Do you see them crawling all around?
There are rats everywhere.
Well, I know Bayonne had full of rats, yeah, I know, but Bayonne
It's
rats.
not just Bayonne.
yeah, but-
It's anywhere where you have that type of structure. There are vermin everywhere.
So what are you doing to get rid of them when you walk in to go catch a light rail, and they maybe, like and they do in New York, they go on the subway? What happened if they start going on the light rail? I don't see no traps around there for the rats. I mean, you're walking over 40th Street and all you see is rats.
Okay.
Why,
Ma'am,
you know,
We need you to wrap up your comments.
You know.
Okay.
so what are you going to do about all that?
Well, we're going to get in touch with New Jersey Transit to see if they can send their exterminators, because I have not seen the rats or gotten one report from it.
I see rats, and people that live around there see rats.
Okay.
So maybe you're there at the exact time when, late at night, when there's all the rats. So what about the 49th Street light? When are they going to start, like you said?
I've been in touch with Public Service. They said that we're still in a queue right now, and I've been told, hopefully soon. That's what I've been told.
But all the speeding on Avenue C, the boulevard, and, I mean, they're going fast. Where are the cops stopping them? I don't see them.
The cops are around.
Somebody just got hit from BEOF, a lady crossing the street. She just got hit last week from a speeding car.
The police are very proactive in going after people.
And how come when there's a crime in Bayonne, it's like it's always covered up? Like the one with the guy shot his wife, but she lived last week. The lady that was found on 2nd Street, and the other lady that was just found recently
Wait, I don't know
down
if
by
these
Jersey
things-
City. But how come we don't hear that? And then all of a sudden it dies. Like when I lived down right by the park, when the kid got shot down by the basketball field, you don't hear nothing no more. Why is it always covered up?
I don't think the word cover-up is
Well,
right.
it sounds
I
like a
think
cover-up.
If they're still investigating it, they don't want to put all their information out, and that's the reason why you don't get it right away. But
Yeah, but you never hear about it no more.
I don't, the real
Yeah,
important
that's
ones you
true.
do
So
hear
in other
about.
words, they don't catch anybody, is that what you're
Mr. Sullivan
saying?
writes about it very often, as a matter of
No, we don't even have the paper anymore. We don't even have the shadow nose. He was the one that told us. What happened to the shadow nose?
I
What
don't
happened?
know.
Where is
I
that
don't-
man?
I don't know.
Well, a man or a woman, because he put it down in that shadow,
He's in
and
the
everybody
shadows,
knew. But
hiding
yeah,
somewhere.
it seems like the
Yeah.
shadow
All
disappeared.
right, is there anything else?
No, that's
Okay,
it.
thank you, thank you.
Excuse me, Counsel, for the
Yeah.
record, there was no body on 2nd Street found. No, there
Right.
was not.
Ms. Gadesky, I'm going to have Jay Coffey answer some of your questions, okay? I don't know who she's talking to, but, all right, ma'am, please don't talk from your seat. Ms. Gadesky, I'm going to have Jay Coffey talk about the bridge, some of your
Okay,
points.
32nd Street, Gail. That's owned by New Jersey Transit.
Let me write this down.
All right,
It's owned by New Jersey Transit.
Right. And we have a meeting with the state rep at the bridge in early June. I'm going to be in attendance in that meeting. And that bridge is in, as you said, very poor condition, needs to be dealt with. We have that we've included the bridge in the HBLRT 34th Street plan. Yeah. And it's a priority to repair, and we're looking for it to do a joint project with New Jersey Transit. We have a cost estimate from 2019 in the amount of $6.5 million. My guess would be that it costs a little bit more than that now, if not a lot bit more.
But if New Jersey Transit owns it, who's paying for it? Who's footing the bill?
Well, New Jersey Transit would foot a great portion of the bill. I'm sure there's going to be a joint project between Bayonne, because once you come off the bridge, it has to connect to the city of Bayonne. So this has to be done with both of us. They're responsible for the bridge
Maybe a
itself.
70-30 split.
I don't know the number.
And then it's going to be connected to all that empty parking lot space by the Hudson Bergen light rail there on 34th Street?
That's how it would work.
Okay, perfect. What about 25th Street, anything?
25th Street, I have to talk to Rob Russo. I know that they're proceeding apace. There's work being done every single day there. I don't know what the status of it is. I can find out tomorrow from our engineer.
Thank you. Al, you got that down? Good.
Okay, moving on is an ordinance of the City of Bayonne, County of Hudson, New Jersey, approving a financial agreement by and between the City of Bayonne and Woodmont Bayonne Phase 2 Urban Renewal LLC for the property located on West 52nd Street, which property is identified as Block 37, Lot 1, as shown on the official tax map of the City of Bayonne, and a resolution moved by the Council President fixing Wednesday, June 14th, in the Dorothy E. Harrington Council Chambers as a time and place for a public hearing and final passage. Mr. Perez, will you?
This is going to be
Second.
pulled, Madeline?
You going to pull this one?
Yes.
You're pulling this?
Yes.
Well, these are all up for introduction, not for public hearing today, so 010 is off. At the public hearing, 011 is an ordinance of the City of Bayonne, County of Hudson, New Jersey, approving a financial agreement by and between the City of Bayonne, Avenue E, Development AMS Urban Renewal LLC for the property located at 132 and 140 Avenue E, which is identified as Block 458, Lot 1.01, and Block 467, Lot 23, as shown on the official tax map of the City of Bayonne, and a resolution moved by the Council President fixing Wednesday, June 14th, in the Dorothy E. Harrington Council Chambers as a time and place for a public hearing and final passage. Mr. Perez, will you second?
Second.
On that resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
012
I have a question.
is for introduction, Gail.
Yeah, but 016 is for introduction too, and I'm being allowed to ask questions on that. So why
Are you?
can't I ask questions on the other ones?
Because it's procedure. You know the drill.
016,
I'm not on 016 yet.
I allowed you to ask questions on 016, but the rest of them, we have to get through this agenda. You can ask Mr. Coffey questions, he's going to speak to you tomorrow. So any question you have, you can ask him tomorrow.
But the public needs to know the answer to my question.
Next month, sorry.
Oh, my God.
Ms. Clerk?
012 is an ordinance of the City of Bayonne, County of Hudson, New Jersey, approving a financial agreement by and between the City of Bayonne and Avenue E Developers Mile High AMS Urban Renewal LLC for the property located at 157-163 Avenue E, which property is identified as Block 234, Lot 8.01, as shown on the official tax map of the city, and a resolution fixing Wednesday, June 14th, in the Dorothy E. Harrington Council Chambers as a time and place for a public hearing and final passage. The resolution is moved by Councilmember Perez. Mr. Booker, will you second?
Second.
And on the resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye. We're pulling 013 as well.
014 is an ordinance of the City of Bayonne, County of Hudson, New Jersey, approving a 5-year tax agreement with Bayonne 32 LLC for the property located at 43 that address is wrong, 43-45 West 32nd Street, which property is identified as Block 145, Lot 1, as shown on the official tax map of the city, and a resolution fixing Wednesday, June 14th, and the Dorothy E. Harrington Council Chambers as a time and place for public hearing and final passage. Who would like to move it?
Move.
And a second?
Second.
And on that resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Mr. La Palusa. 015 is also coming off. 016 is an ordinance of the City of Bayonne in the County of Hudson, State of New Jersey, amending the revised general ordinances to add Chapter 39, providing for the establishment of a municipal water and water waste utility. And a resolution moved by the Council President fixing Wednesday, June 14th, and the Dorothy E. Harrington Council Chambers as a time and place for public hearing and final passage. Mr. Perez, will you second?
Second.
And on that resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
017 is an ordinance.
Excuse me,
Yeah,
I'm supposed to be allowed.
come up and ask your question, Gail. Sorry.
I was under the impression we were going to get a presentation today regarding the utility from Mr. Baumann.
Mr. Baumann will be here
Dennis?
for the next meeting. We have Dennis N. right here tonight. If you have questions, you can direct them to me, you can direct them to, actually, direct them through the chair, but I'll be willing to answer questions. Ms. Mauer is here to answer questions, and Mr. Enright's here really to answer the financial aspects of it.
Okay, so the council wants to do a utility. I understand that a utility has an asset. We don't have an asset. As I understand it, Viola has the asset.
No, Gail, you and I talked about this yesterday. Veolia is a servicing agent. We own the asset. We have sold our revenue. In 2012, I believe it was, we factored essentially our revenue for the next 40 years from that. We
Right.
own the asset. We have essentially given up our revenue for the next 40 years. There are obligations attendant to that payment that say that Veolia, and through its concessionaire agreement, would do repairs and make improvements to our infrastructure.
Correct.
You and I talked about this
Yes.
yesterday. If they do it at X percent.
Yes.
If we do it, and they'd love to do all our infrastructure improvements and repairs, because they would get 11% of their money and be able to live well. We can do it we can finance it for less.
I understand
Okay,
that
all right.
financially,
But
totally.
you started
but
off
I-
with a factually wrong thing, that we don't have the asset. We own the asset.
Okay, I stand corrected. However, we still need to bond, and it's going to impact our taxes. So what the council will be doing by approving this utility is just shifting the tax thing. So there'll be no public process when it comes to the taxes. The utility will be able to do the bonding to get the work done.
We went over this yesterday. The utility is a part of the city. Bonding is bonding. If there's a bond, it's done publicly. Nothing's done behind closed doors.
Yeah, but the utility doesn't have to go through the council, just like the Board of Ed? Or will the utility have to go through the council
Absolutely.
for approval?
Yes, it will.
It will?
Over this yesterday, yes.
The council will have control.
The council will have control. But you're actually shifting from you raising the tax base when we need to bond, saying, no, it was the utility that needed to bond, and therefore it's their cause and effect to raise our tax base.
And when we talked about this, what did we talk about? There's a difference between a ratepayer, right?
Yes.
And a taxpayer.
Yes.
And we talked a good long time about this, and
Yes.
there's a difference, and I'll do it Socratically. What's the difference between the ratepayer and the taxpayer?
Well, the taxpayer owns the property and pays the taxes, and the ratepayer pays the water bill.
Okay, and if these are improvements to
And
the...
99.9% of them are the same.
No, that's not the case. And the thing we talked about yesterday was if you have a large water or sewer user, let's say the golf course or Amazon, let's say they use a lot of water, a lot of sewer, as opposed to you who just have one bathroom and you pay based on that. Isn't it more fair and more appropriate that the users of the product pay for the improvements to the infrastructure. We went over this, that the taxpayer, the general taxpayer.
Jay, I know we went over it, but it still doesn't make any sense. There's
It does-
something.
I disagree with you.
think
It
it's-
does make sense.
I think we're shifting the burden from the administration to the utility for the bonding,
no,
and we're
as-
going to
as
get
a
our
matter-
taxes raised
but-
regardless.
By definition, we're not, Gail. You want to believe that, you hope to believe that, but that's not the case. The fact of the matter is, as you and I discussed at length yesterday, is that this is just a financing option for the city of Bayonne, so that instead of having the taxpayer, the general taxpayer, the 14,000 line items in Bayonne pay for these improvements, it will actually be paid by the users, the ratepayers, the people who use the water and sewer. And for the most part, they are one and the same. They're a lot, but how they use the water, how they use the sewer are two different things.
Do you have any other questions?
You're in a hurry, Mr. La Palusa? This
We
is a
need to
public
move-
hearing.
We need to move it. I'm
Thank you,
allowing
Mr. Coffey.
You're very welcome.
Oh, 17,
Yeah.
which is up for
Mr. Enright, do you
introduction.
want to just give a little overview, if you don't mind, just a brief synopsis? We appreciate you being here, by the way.
The reasons behind the utility is to allow the city to deliver lower water and sewer rates to the customers than they otherwise would be charged by the concessionaire, Veolia and the concessionaire. Their agreement, they have to borrow at private rates. The city can borrow and get it paid from the same source without affecting their debt limit, without affecting tax rates, from the New Jersey Infrastructure Bank primarily, and $5 million of that every year is a forgiven amount, and the other is borrowed at half the market rate, and the market rate is a tax-exempt rate versus a corporate rate, which is much higher, so it's about 1/4 of the cost that, you would other have to pay if a private utility borrows the money. Now, Bayonne has a large amount of capital improvements imposed upon it by the DEP and, aging infrastructure. And, it has to be paid for, otherwise you'll turn on the tap one day and there'll be no water.
And that's quite a significant savings when you're talking about millions, which is.
Yeah, it's millions,
Project.
correct.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the information. Thank you. Madeline?
You're ready. 017 is an ordinance of the City of Bayonne, County of Hudson, New Jersey, amending and supplementing the revised general ordinances of the City of Bayonne, Chapter 7, Traffic, and a resolution moved by Councilmember Perez fixing Wednesday, June 14th, in the Dorothy E. Harrington Council Chambers as a time and place for a public hearing and final passage. Mr. Carroll, will you second?
Second.
And on that resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Aye. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
018 is an ordinance amending and supplementing the revised general ordinances of the City of Bayonne, Chapter 33, Planning and Development Regulations, and Chapter 35, Zoning Regulations, and a resolution moved by the Council President fixing Wednesday, June 14th, in the Dorothy E. Harrington Council Chambers as a time and place for a public hearing and final passage. Mr. Carroll, will you second?
Second.
And on the resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
C1 is moved by the council as a whole. It's from the Tax Court of New Jersey in the matter of Bayview JV LLC versus the City of Bayonne. On C1, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
OR1 is from Donna L. Maurer, Chief Financial Officer, reporting on vendor payments and recommending payment of the same, and a resolution adopting the recommendation and ordering the payment of the claims. It is moved by the council as a whole. Any questions on the officer's report? And on the officer's report, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Mr. La Palusa?
Aye.
Consent resolution is moved by the council as a whole. It is a resolution ordering the following resolutions to be adopted. It covers CR1 through CR27. Questions?
Yes, Ms. Gadesky.
CR 14 and CR 21.
And CR 18.
Okay. 1421, Gail, was the other one?
18 and 20.
And 18. Okay. 14, 18, 21.
21. Okay. On the remaining consents, one second, let's get these in order. Mr. Booker?
Aye.
Mr. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. Perez?
Aye.
Ms. Weimer?
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa?
Aye.
CR 14 authorizes the mayor and city clerk to enter into a sub-grant agreement, Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities Grant Program with the New Jersey Office of Emergency Management for FEMA funds.
Ms. Mack, you want to explain this?
This also is Director Kavanaugh. This is the FEMA grant. So this is the brick grant that we were discussing earlier that Donna Maurer was kind enough to do the bonding for. This is the same grant. It's for Cottage Street and for the emergency generator, I believe, is it 67th Street? 57th? 53rd? 63rd. I get confused with.
63rd emergency generator for what purpose? We have a big, oh,
Yeah.
pumping station.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. All right, thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
Ms. Kavanaugh, I apologize, I did not see you over there. But if you want to come up and answer 21 for Ms. Gadesky. She has a question on it, so.
That's on CR 14, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
CR 18 is authorizing the city of Bayonne to declare and exercise domain over the Elko PT boat crane currently located within Rakowski Park.
I'm just curious of what the city's going to do.
So when that
Okay.
was put there, Mike, I don't think there was any designation about who owned that and who placed that there. And so this is kind of like declaring that the city of Bayonne owns that boat crane. You want to explain
Yeah,
a little
back,
further?
back when Elko was closing, had closed, and they were going to tear everything down, throw everything away. I think it was under Mayor Doria that we went down there and took that PT boat crane, that built PT 109, Kennedy's boat, and we put it in storage. I can't say it was done in the still of the night that we did it, but we just took it, and because it was going to be scrapped. So we did what we had to do as a city, and we knew we were going to put it in Rakowski Park. That was how many years ago?
Right, that was with the Historical
2006?
Society.
Yeah, no,
I was here with Marvin.
No,
and-
so then the Historical Society said, committee said recently, hey, we think it'd be a good idea, because it's sitting in Rakowski Park now.
Yeah.
For everyone to see. It's been there for a long time. And in order to protect it and designate it as historic, somebody has to exercise ownership over it. So we finally did a resolution. You know, we're a municipality, we take a little time, 15, 16 years later, and here we are saying that we admit we own and we want to take dominion over that that crane, and we're happy to do it. And that will allow us in turn to seek to protect it, so that 20 years from now, 30 years from now, somebody can't just take it down and make it part of scrap.
Okay, very good, thank you.
And on CR 18, Mr. Booker. Aye. Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Aye. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
Oh, didn't see
Mr.
him
Ryan,
over there.
I think
Sorry.
it also allows us to possibly get some grant money to fix up the area around there and do signage and things like that, too. But go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, Council President, the Historic Preservation Commission, under its process, needs to send a legal notice to the owner, and we couldn't find a piece of paper at either the state or city levels indicating ownership. So this resolution, in which the city is claiming ownership, gives the Historic Preservation Commission the ability to send proper notice to the owner and then to take action along with the planning board and the council to give historic designation to it. The state of New Jersey had approved moving the crane back in 2003 from its original site because the Boatworks housing development was going to be displacing it. And the state had a policy saying so long as you relocate it along the same body of water, Newark Bay, they would accept it. So it's been at Rutkowski Park ever since. There is an interest in designating it historic and also developing a plan to protect it physically. And this would just enable us to do that properly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
For that information.
CR 21 is approving the submission of a grant application and executing a grant contract with the New Jersey Department of Transportation for improvements to Avenue E.
Right. And Mr. Cotter, I believe, right? You're.
Yeah, what?
She deferred to you.
It's condescending. Director Carter, what improvements do you plan on Avenue E?
This is a grant we're applying for to repaving, resurfacing Avenue E.
Weren't you talking about that several months back, about repaving Avenue E?
We were denied a grant, and now we're putting in for another grant to see if we could get it.
How much is the grant for?
I think we're putting in for close to $800,000 on that.
And how many blocks will that cover?
We're hoping to get all of Avenue E, but it's going to be based on what the current rate of asphalt would be. Well, that's what we're looking for. We're trying to finish from, I believe it was 45th down to, I believe, 17th.
Okay, excluding 22nd Street, 23rd Street, where they already paved in front of their apartments, though, correct? You're not going to repave what the developers did in front of their new apartment buildings, correct?
No, we wouldn't repave that.
Okay. So that'll save a little bit of money, right? Go an extra block. Thank you, Director.
Anybody else? On CR 21, Mr. Booker. Aye. Mr. Carroll. Aye. Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Aye. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
R1 is approving emergency temporary budget number 5 for calendar year 2023 municipal budget. It's moved by the council president. Mr. Perez, will you second?
Second.
Any questions? On the resolution, Mr. Booker. Aye. Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Aye. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
R2 is a resolution moved by Councilmember Carroll, authorizing and directing the planning board to reopen the 8th Street Rehabilitation Plan to consider amendments for 12-14 West 9th Street, which property is identified as Block 383, Lot 23, pursuant to the local redevelopment and housing law. Mr. Perez, will you second?
Second.
And on that resolution, Mr. Booker. Aye. Mr. Carroll. Aye. Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Aye. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
R3 is moved by Councilmember Booker, authorizing and directing the planning board to conduct a preliminary investigation to determine whether the property located at 28-34 East 22nd Street constitutes a non-condemnation area of need of redevelopment pursuant to the local redevelopment and housing law. Mr. La Palusa, will you second?
Second.
On that resolution, Mr. Booker. Aye. Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Aye. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
R4 is moved by the council president authorizing. and
Before
direct-
you go to 4, on 3, I'm getting told that R3 also needs Lot 32 in there.
Okay. So it's block lot.
It's lots 30, 31, and 32.
Okay, it's not been late to redo the resolution itself. Okay. No problem. R4 is moved by the council president, authorizing and directing the planning board to conduct a preliminary investigation to determine whether the property located at 361-363 365-371 and 373 Kennedy Boulevard constitutes a non-condemnation area of need of redevelopment pursuant to the local redevelopment and housing law. Mr. Perez, will you second?
Second.
On the resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer.
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa.
Aye. Madeline, we're going to pull R5 and 6.
Okay.
You're pulling that?
Yes. R7 is moved by Councilmember Perez, authorizing negotiations to enter into a redevelopment agreement with Bridgepoint Bayonne Urban Renewal LLC for the property located at 63-67 New Hook Road, which is identified as Block 416, Lot 3. Mr. Booker, will you second?
Second.
And on the resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer.
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
R8 is an introduction of the calendar year 2023 local municipal budget, and fixing Wednesday, June 14, at 7 p.m. in the Dorothy E. Harrington Council Chambers as a time and place for a public hearing and possible final passage. It's moved by Councilmember Carroll. Ms. Weimer, will you second?
Second.
On the resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer.
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
R10 is...
Ms. Gadetsky, did you have a question?
Question on 9. Mr. Coffey graciously explained this to me
Can I
yesterday.
get through the formalities?
I'm sorry?
R9?
I
You want
thought you were
R9,
raising
right?
your hand for R8.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
R9 is a resolution moved by Councilmember Perez, authorizing the City of Bayonne's participation in the pooled note financing program of the Hudson County Improvement Authority. Ms. Weimer, will you second?
Second.
And on the resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer.
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
Thank you.
Mr. Coffey graciously explained the reasoning behind this. Again, it's the rate that we're going to be bonding for. It's cheaper to go into the pool, blah, blah, blah. However, in my thinking overnight and this morning, I really believe that once again, we're shifting the increase in our taxes for bonding to the county now.
No.
Because
no.
it's going to be, the county's going to be paying for the bonding. We got to pay the county, so is that going to be part of our county bill instead of our city bill? That's my question. How is this going to work?
Donna, you want to answer? Go ahead.
You understand what I'm saying?
It's
Because
paid
it
through-
looks like,
It's paid through our debt service in the budget. It's not paid through the county tax. It's paid the same way if we were to sell the bonds or the notes. It's paid through the same way through our debt service. And going through the pooled note, it's a big pool because other towns in the county, we all go together and we go into one.
that I understand.
So we get a
But
low
we,
rate.
we
So it's-
pay.
But
we-
is there fees involved in this? Is there any fees to the county on our
No,
behalf?
the same fees that we would pay if we did it ourselves. Issuance costs, that you would have to pay bond counsel.
So no additional overhead, and we
no.
wouldn't have to, so.
And we share it with all the other towns. We go in as one, and one amount, and we share it.
And we have to use the bond council that the county selects and not
We
the.
use our own bond counsel.
You could use your own bond
Yes.
council, but, so they
We're
purchase.
represented by our own bond counsel, and then the county has their own bond counsel. We all appear before local finance board.
Okay, so there's no additional county taxes implicated or anything like that?
Absolutely not.
Okay, I was wrong. I just needed to clarify. Thank you. At least I admit I'm wrong when I'm wrong,
R10
unlike others.
is moved by the council president, and it is determining the form and other details of not to exceed $1,697,557 in general obligation bonds of the city of Bayonne in the county of Hudson, state of New Jersey, and approving the sale to the New Jersey Infrastructure Bank pursuant to the New Jersey Transportation Infrastructure Bank Financing Program. And it's seconded by Mr. Perez.
Second.
Okay. And on the any questions? On the resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
R11 is moved by Councilmember Booker, authorizing the mayor and/or his designees to enter into a tax appeal settlement agreement with Rite Aid Investors, Inc. for the property located at 471 Broadway, and authorizing the mayor and/or his designee to take any actions necessary to effectuate the resolution and the resulting judgment. Mr. Perez, will you second?
Second.
And on that resolution, Mr. Booker?
Aye.
Mr. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. Perez?
Aye.
Ms. Weimer? Mr. La Palusa?
Aye.
R12 is moved by the council president, is authorizing the tax collector to prepare and mail estimated third quarter taxes. Mr. Perez, will you second?
Second.
Any questions? On that resolution, Mr. Booker?
Aye.
Mr. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. Perez?
Aye.
Ms. Weimer? Mr. La Palusa?
Aye.
R13 is moved by Councilmember Perez, is amending Resolution 2302-15-032, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an access agreement with PPG Industries, Inc. in connection with Block 383, Lots 1, Lot 2, Lot 3, and Lots 4 through 8, Block 384, Lots 1 and 2, as amended by Resolution 2303-15096, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute a deed notice and a notice in lieu of deed notice, amending both resolutions to remove Block 383, Lots 1 and 2, and include Block 385, Lots 1 and 2, and Block 385, Lots 3 and 6, and ratifying the actions of the mayor and the city clerk in executing said deed notice and notice of in lieu of deed notice. Mr. Carroll, will you second?
Second.
And on that resolution, Mr. Booker?
Aye.
Mr. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. Perez?
Aye.
Ms. Weimer? Mr. La Palusa?
Aye.
R14 is moved by the council as a whole. It is expressing the city of Bayonne's support of the Bayonne Medical Center, Medical Center's request for federal grant funds. Any
Do that
questions?
as a whole?
Yes, you did. And on that resolution, Mr. Booker?
Aye.
Mr. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. Perez?
Aye.
Ms. Weimer? Mr. La Palusa?
Aye.
Two additional items. First one is authorizing the UEZ coordinator to apply to the New Jersey Urban Enterprise Zone Authority Zone Assistance Fund in the amount of $30,000 for the Bayonne UEZ Music on Broadway. Who'd like to move it?
So moved.
Second.
And on the resolution, Mr. Booker?
Aye.
Mr. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. Perez?
Aye.
Ms. Weimer? Mr. La Palusa?
Aye.
Add two is designating the property located at 431-433, 435-437 Broadway, 10 West 20th Street, and 11 West 19th Street, which property is identified as Block 220, Lots 18, 23, 24, and 25, and 26, as a non-condemnation area of need of redevelopment pursuant to the local redevelopment and housing law, and authorizing and directing the planning board to prepare a redevelopment plan.
Move it.
Second. And on that resolution, Mr. Booker?
Aye.
Mr. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. Perez?
Aye.
Ms. Weimer? Mr. La Palusa?
Aye.
That is all I have, unless there's anything else.
Well, I want to wish everybody a happy Memorial Day, and please don't forget to vote, no matter how you vote, by mail or in person, for the June primary on June 6th.
And with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
And a second. And on the motion to adjourn, Mr. Booker?
Aye.
Mr. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. Perez?
Aye.
Ms. Weimer? Mr. La Palusa?
Aye. Good night, everybody.